Was it a mistake for Disney to buy Star Wars? That is the question that I am posing for this discussion video. Because honestly, I had this idea in my head, like, what is it a mistake? Was it? Because Disney bought Star Wars, what, in November of 2012, I think? It's been quite a long time, actually. This year, if I'm correct, it'll be a decade of Disney Star Wars, which they had their highs and they had their lows. And I feel like depending on the person, they would have a much different answer. Because there is no clear-cut answer whether it was a mistake. Because I feel like we would have to wait in the long term. Even though I just said it's been a decade since Disney bought Star Wars, we still have to wait a much longer time. Like even another decade even, I feel like. Because we just have to let them test their footing in the water. The sequel trilogy was a test in the long term, and their footing right now seems like it's just in the Disney Plus shows, because I don't think Lucasfilm can make a film. Like, the Rogue Squadron, I think, film that was supposed to come out is just postponed indefinitely for the time being, and I'm like, why? Can't the director make their own film? Don't you guys at Lucasfilm let the director have all the control for the film? I guess not anymore. Well, I mean, that was never the case anyway, because they always had control. It was their films, but they had a lot of freedom to make their own films. Which we got The Last Jedi, and we got Rogue One, and you saw those high and lows. That's saying Disney Star Wars is basically high and lows, because I think right now, yeah, in terms of films and content, it was. The sequel trilogy hurt the saga. The anthology films are good, but it's just there. I mean, Rogue One's a good film, but only the final act is good. Solo could have been a masterpiece of the film if it wasn't handled poorly as it was. And the only things that are good are the Disney Plus shows, and even then people are upset about the Book of Boba Fett. But in terms of content, I think it was, like, a mistake. But in terms of theme parks and merchandise, I don't think it was. Disney bought Star Wars for the name brand, not for the content side of things. They probably didn't even know how to make a sequel trilogy. They probably just said, oh, sequel trilogy, put toys, merchandise, boom, all of that. Not about the content itself, which is the major problem. Because Episode 1 to Episode 6, yes, there was a lot of merchandise that they flash in front of your faces, with characters constantly changing their costumes. There's different aliens, different droids, and that's mainly there to just sell more toys. You know, that's still happening with the Disney Plus shows and stuff like that, but it was much more hidden, and it wasn't as obvious. Now, that's not to say it was. For example, Jar Jar Binks was there to make the children laugh, but it was also there to sell toys. Same with the Ewoks. You know, they were there to just sell toys. Yes, they were important to the film, but they're just there to sell toys in the long run. But with Lucasfilm, they only care about the long run. They don't care about the short term with making a good film or a good trilogy. They would rather just make a film that has a lot of marketability to it, and I think that's a problem. They need to make films that are actually good. I think the main reason why Disney Star Wars, in my opinion, has failed right now is because they just don't really know how Star Wars works. I think that's the main reason. Kathleen Kennedy doesn't know how Star Wars works. That's because she was actually handpicked by George Lucas to run Lucasfilm. She's not someone who worked on the original trilogy. She's a producer. If you don't know, she's basically a producer on a lot of older films like the Indiana Jones franchise that happened back decades ago. I don't know if she did the Crystal Skull film or not, I don't know. But she worked on a lot of older films that Steven Spielberg made. So she has a really high record. This female producer, so having her be the lead of Lucasfilm is not a problem. But it says that she's not a good person to make Star Wars content. She doesn't know Star Wars all that much. If you were to listen to her interviews about Star Wars, she gives more of like a vague description Compared to Kevin Feige, the CEO of Marvel, he talks about the comic books and his plan for the MCU, making this comic book stuff happen in a film franchise, and he succeeded with that. It's just 90-day difference, and that's the main problem. That the people who are working at Lucasfilm don't necessarily know how to continue the franchise or know how Star Wars works. Now, there are people who know how Star Wars works, like Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni. They know how it works, because they worked with George Lucas. Now, I'm not saying you have to work with George Lucas in order to know how Star Wars works. There's a lot of Star Wars fans that have made films like Star Wars Theory made his Vader fan film, which felt like Star Wars. He didn't talk to George Lucas. He just really loves Star Wars and watches the films and digests everything that comes from this franchise and understands how it works, and he made his own fan film. In conclusion, right now I think Disney, it was a mistake to buy Star Wars, but I hope that as time moves on, more people get into Lucasfilm that are passionate about Star Wars and actually get good Star Wars material made. Because I don't want to watch another film like the sequel trilogy where it's just fan service and just corporate films being made. I don't want that. I want actual films that tell a story, that get me invested, that makes me care. Because if I care, then other people are going to care, which means other people are going to buy money on those toys and games and whatnot, which means more money for Lucasfilm and Disney. It seems like they kind of forgot step one. Make good content. Because when you make good content, then the money just keeps rolling in. Why do you think Marvel's so successful? You make good content, the toys are being made about that good content, people are going to buy those toys. Boom. You get $1 billion at box office, get billions of dollars in toy revenue in a couple years' time. You're making billions of dollars. Lucasfilm failed. Rey toys are not selling, but a Luke Skywalker toy sells out. An Anakin toy sells out. An Obi-Wan toy sells out. A Darth Vader toy sells out. Kylo Ren toy, people buy it, but it's not as much. No one's gonna buy a Finn toy. It's like, people don't care about the sequel trilogy. People don't really care about it. But what do you guys think? Do you agree or disagree? Do you think that was a mistake? Comment down below, and I'm gonna go now, so goodbye everyone.